yet.
Yeah, I don't either.
There we go. They're coming in now. Pulled you. Okay.
Yep. So good afternoon, people. I wanted to introduce myself as Desmond Hardy, the sales manager at Carmichael Consulting Solutions. We are going to allow a few brief moments to allow further panelists to join in. And after we do that, you will hear a brief welcome from our president, Tyler Jones, and then we will get into the actual meat of our Lunch and Learn series for today, which is cutting costs without cutting services. So again, my name is Desmond Hardy. I'm the sales manager here at Carmichael Consulting Solutions, and we will be here to support you in propping up the partners that we work with, the technology partners we work with, that will enable and empower you to get more done without cutting any costs, and in order to be more efficient and effective at doing what you do best. I understand that the times that we live in right now are a lot more precarious than we could have ever imagined. So we want to make sure that we can empower you by getting you in front of our technology partners that will enable you to be able to navigate, survive, and thrive in the new normal. So with that being said, I wanted to offer and introduce our president, Tyler Jones, to offer some brief words, and then after that, you will hear from our first panelist. So Tyler, take it away.
Thank you, Desmond. Hello, everybody. This is Tyler Jones. Appreciate Desmond's warm introduction. Desmond has been a longtime friend of Carmichael before he joined our team a couple of years ago to run our sales organization. And for those of you who have worked with him, you know exactly what a tremendous asset he has been to us, and appreciate very much his warm introduction. So obviously the business world has changed. In the course of the last 90 days, we have seen unparalleled in most of our lifetimes shifts in not only societal function, but in business function as well. And while those who were prepared have been able to weather the storm and some even succeed and grow, those who were ill prepared have really struggled to maintain business and stay afloat. And it is a challenging time for every business. So we are adjusting to new norms, to new sets of requirements, to new ways of operating. It was interesting, I was reading an article earlier this week talking about the fact that WeWork in April had seen 2/3 of its clients leave. So it is not a small change here. It is a seismic shift for most of us. The good news is that Carmichael was well prepared for this. We had long been ready for the ability to work from home, so our clients saw no interruption in the services we delivered to them. We were able to continue taking voice calls, doing email support, accessing all of our tools to support our clients throughout this process. And again, that had been long part of our business continuity planning. We've helped a myriad customers get new laptops set up, get home offices set up, get IP phone systems set up, get cloud migrations done, lots and lots and lots of things like that to help ensure that the businesses we work with were prepared and able to continue functioning with as little interruption as possible. But it is a new world out there, and as we all try and figure out what our new normals are going to look like, we're going to have to leverage technology to help do that. We've all seen the stratospheric rise of technologies like Zoom and Teams in the last couple of months, and you've seen some of the numbers that they have posted jumping from, I think Zoom jumped from like 2 million users to 300 million users. And I may have the numbers a little bit off there, but it is, again, massive shifts in how people are connecting with one another within the organization, outside their organization. And so our panelists today have some great technologies that are already relevant before this happened, but all the more so. This has kind of highlighted the importance of some of the technologies that we're working with through our partners and how critically important some of those can be to a business being able to continue to operate and do so with, as I said, as little disruption and as little loss in security as possible. And so back to the topic at hand today, and that is continuing to operate in the new world without a loss of service, but being able to reduce costs. IT outsourcing is something I have done for the vast bulk of my career. Since my first job in IT outsourcing for Fortune 500 companies back in 1997, up to my founding of Carmichael Consulting a little over 9 years ago, there is always an opportunity to reduce IT spending without reducing the services and functionality that your teams have. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, is what you can do to leverage good technology to make your teams efficient, to make them accountable, and to make them productive regardless of what burdens and challenges the world may throw at us. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Desmond.
All right, thank you, Tyler. And as usual, Tyler always knocks it out of the park with his smooth baritone radio voice. I'm so jealous. Before we get started with our first panelist today, I wanted to start us off with a quick couple of polls. And the reason I wanted to start off with the polls is because we wanted to give away some more giveaways. So we've got some gift cards available, some Amazon and some Starbucks gift cards for the person or persons who answer the most right on the poll. So for our icebreaker poll, we wanted to start off with the first question today, which is, what percentage of the world's population uses the internet today? So I want you to think about that and then answer. Then following the first question, we'll follow that up with, what percentage of all the world's data has been created in the last 2 years? Get those thinking caps or the Google search ready. And then we'll follow that up with, what percent of organizations claim that negligent or careless employees are the top risk to endpoint security? This would be a good question. And then we'll follow that up with, what is the leading source of data loss? And then last but not least, what percentage of data loss is caused by employee error? So I'll go ahead and get the Jeopardy theme music playing real quick here. Well, maybe it's not playing. So imagine the Jeopardy theme music playing in your head. And I'm going to give you all another 10 seconds to complete your icebreaker quiz before we hand it over to our first panelist, Justin Kapahi. Say in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Perfect. So at the end of our webinar, I'm going to announce the winner, and I'll hand it over to Justin Kapahi. So Justin, take it away.
Thank you, Desmond. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone has been healthy and safe during these certainly interesting times. My name is Justin Kapahi. I'm the Director of Partnerships at Workplace. I'm going to take you through a couple of slides to talk about what we do and what are some of the issues that we address. And then I have a quick demo to show you. And then at the end, we'll have certainly a question and answer session, and certainly ask anything that you'd want. So a little bit about who we are. OS33 has been in business selling and implementing remote access for more than 18 years. We have over 375 regulated customers, most of those being in the financial services industry, but we also have other, any industry that where security matters, where data security matters, is certainly relevant to what we do. We're a FINRA certified solution. We're ambassadors of Financial Services Institute. We have over 200 employees, and about half of them are engineers. We're all a bunch of nerds, and we invest heavily in our product, and that's really what we're going to talk about today. So, there is definitely a regulation and data security challenge, and it's really what it comes down to is about data and the risk of that data being lost or breached. And over the last, 5, 6, 7 years, most of us, including I'm sure yourself, have moved primarily to applications that live on the web They are available from anywhere you go. They access them from home, from work computers, from bring your own computers. Of course, people during this crazy pandemic time are using all of their home machines, and there's a lot of concern about data security and how do we maintain not just security but regulatory compliance, during a time when we don't necessarily manage the computers that we're working on, when we don't know what's really happening on a home network, where people are using computers that maybe don't have all the software that they're used to having on there. And because of that, Workplace, which is the software that we make, has become even more relevant today than it's ever been. And because of that, we've been very busy during the last 90 days. And we do have an offer out there for free trials of our software if you guys need it during this time with no obligation. We'll talk about that later. But we really aim to solve, the security and regulatory problem while still allowing, easy remote access from anywhere you are and having all the capabilities that you need to work every day. So what is the challenge? So the first is that you have devices, right? And usually when you're in the office or giving out devices, that means that each computer has your software on it. You feel good that it's a safe place to compute on. But as soon as you get to the home machine, that's where this becomes a problem, right? How do we know that these devices are compliant enough to actually work with your data? Should we be going to your CRM system from a home computer, which is the same computer that your child is gaming on? How do we how do we fix those issues if they're there? How do we recognize that they're there? These are big questions, and they're very hard to answer these days. Just trying to get my. The second issue is really around users. Who is accessing your data, right? Do you have authentication? Do you have multi-factor authentication? How do you know who that user is? What are they doing when they're in the application? What data have they taken out of that application? Was the computer safe for access when it was accessed? These are other questions that are very important that we're trying very hard to answer today. From an application and file activity level, where do your files live? The data is living in the files or in the applications. And if you're looking to mitigate risk and actually be secure, you have to have a full understanding where your files actually live, who's accessing them, and what are the risks associated with them being stolen or breached from that location. And then how do you securely share files? How do you securely gain access to folders? And finally, there's the audit portion. So being able to have evidence that you are mitigating risk, have records if you do get audited, being able to evaluate how your security is actually working and where it works from. These are all really big questions that you have to answer in order to actually be secure and to meet regulatory challenges. And Workplace is designed to solve all of this no matter where you're accessing the data from. So just a few high-profile breaches that have been out there, and what I want to point out is that, really, and hopefully you guys answered this question, right? Most of your vulnerabilities come from, right, phishing attacks and employee errors, right? I think everybody hopefully knew that, right? I'm not really sure which one's more. We'll find out. But if you look at Cetera Financial Group and Voya, which were huge breaches with large fines, these were really done that really started from phishing attacks and social engineering attacks. And I'm sure you've noticed, but I've definitely noticed that during the last 90 days, I have never seen more phishing attempts than we've seen right now, right? The world and the hackers know that we are more vulnerable than we've ever been right now, and it's become extra important to make sure that everything that we're doing as far as work on our data is actually secure and not exposing additional risk to all of our users' data. Because if that happens, the regulatory authorities will not care that there was a pandemic going on, right? Firms are supposed to have plans to enact when these type of events occur, whether it's disaster, whether it's pandemic or not, it's the same thing, right? You have to be able to deal with it, and we try to make that as easy as possible. So I'd like to show you Workplace, which is what the software that OS33 makes. That's what we're talking about today. And it is a cloud security and compliance platform. The main edition of it is called Workplace Stronghold, and I will demo this in just a moment. And it has many features that are strongly relevant in today's world, and I'm going to show you that. So the first is device inventory and compliance. When you access Workplace, will automatically scan your computer, understand what the security is involved, help you remediate them. And then once you have met the compliance standard for your device, it'll then let you in. And there are even capabilities for what we call dynamic access control, which will change the way the system behaves based on what it finds. So you might say, hey, if you're coming from a laptop that we gave you from the office, you can download files and you can work normally. But if you're working from a home computer that we can't determine if it's safe, then you're going to be using, virtualized hosted applications. Workplace can make those decisions for you. That's the second bullet here. That's what the dynamic access control is. I'm going to show you this in just a few seconds. Third, you have identity management. So on the previous screen, I showed you a bunch of breaches, and one of them was actually a firm was involving a product called Redtail. And what happened was that a broker-dealer had given Redtail to all of its advisors, and then when the advisors broke away and formed their own firms, the original broker-dealer didn't shut off Redtail. They still had access to it. And the reason that is because they had given a large variety of applications to their advisors, and they basically just forgot to turn off access to the third-party applications, even though they had disabled access to their primary system. Identity management allows your credentials and your identity to flow down to the third-party applications. So for example, when you're using Workplace, you click on an icon to, let's say, go to Salesforce, you never have to enter another password. There isn't even a place where we're automatically submitting a password. It just knows who you are because you came from Workplace and lets you write in. So if you turned off access to Workplace, then you would no longer have access to any of the downstream applications as well. We also have a password vault. We also have username and password-based single sign-on, just really trying to make the user experience easy, right? A lot of your folks have gone home to work during this pandemic, and their passwords were saved in their browser in the office. They didn't know how to get into the app from when they were home, causing a lot of heartache the first few days. Something identity management not only has better security, but also makes it easier to access the systems wherever you are and still do it safely. Single launch point. So this is sort of our most classic feature, what we've been doing for years. Wherever you access Workplace from, whether it's a web browser, whether it's our installed application on your computer, whether it's your mobile application, Android or iOS, it doesn't matter. You log into Workplace and your work world is right there ready for you to work safely. And just that alone has reduced a lot of the issues involved with what's going on today, because it's just so easy to log in and get your work done. Secure data interactions. So we have a proprietary browser that you can use with our system to access your websites that isolates the data from the rest of your computer. We have a special secure and compliance file system that has retention and compliance features and file sharing and folder sharing and collaboration and all the great features that you need today to work with your files. And also one audit dashboard and admin console to do everything. It's a turnkey system. You administrate it from one area. You look at all your logs from one area. We have clients who get audited by the SEC every single week. You could print out our reports and literally hand them to the auditors. You make it really easy. And all of that still applies whether you're working in the office on a company managed device, or whether you're working at home on your own device, or even if you're doing both exactly the same time, right? Many of you have managed laptops, but people are using their personal cell phones. How do you operate in that kind of environment? And that's what we aim to solve. So just a summary of the use cases, and then we'll hop right into the demo. So one would be just, you need device inventory and compliance, right? You want to know what's going on those home computers. You don't want to have to spend the money and manage them all, but you need visibility into what's going on, right? And you want users to be able to easily fix their issues on their own. That's one use case. A second would be what we call dynamic access control, which some of our employees and some of our customers now call the gate. And this is where the system alters how it works based on the security of the device you're coming from, right? So I'm going to show you an example of when I have my screensaver on, I can access files and I can use them locally. And then when I turn it off, the system realizes that and now forces me to use a web-based file system inside of our secure browser. We're going to take a good look at that. And a third great use case is you just want to have a single point, to launch all your applications from, right? As simple as that sounds, what we have found during this pandemic, and as I mentioned before, is that your assets are everywhere. They have different credentials, different passwords, different URLs. You can't remember all of it. people, you want to make sure that you're not always entering your passwords from every different computer. People and employees love to have just an easy place to go and launch their applications and have the system just work. And that's what we aim to do. So those are the use cases. And of course, there's many more, but those are the primary three that we solve for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end the show. And you should be looking at a Windows virtual machine that I have running on my laptop right now. And this is Workplace.
Yep, we see it.
Good, good. So this is Workplace. This is, in this instance, this is the Windows, what we call Workplace for Windows. We also have Workplace for Mac. I'm actually on a Mac right now, but I thought I'd show you the Windows version instead. That's exactly the same. There's also a URL that you can go to. So if you're in a business center at a hotel and you just want to go to your company's special URL and log in, you can do that. And of course, there's apps for the phone as well. Typically, the main function of the mobile app is for the two-factor authentication, which just want to let you know that I turned off for this demo just to make going in and out of it a little bit easier and to speed up the demo a little bit. So this is Workplace for Windows. It's already been installed on my machine. How it got there was that when I signed up, there was an enrollment process where I register and I set up my password and I download the app, and then it also downloads this app to my computer, and then I can get in. So it has a wizard and it walks you through everything. I'm going to go ahead and log in. So as I mentioned, the two-factor is turned off, but we actually insist that this is turned on for all of our clients. We don't let our clients go live anymore without it. It's definitely a requirement. I'm going to go ahead and log in. And after the authentication, it will now do its first scan of my computer, and that's what it's doing right now. And it will continue to do scans throughout my entire session. So if something changes, the system will then change as a result. So what you're looking at here, this is this is sort of that single launch point. This is the dashboard to all my apps. I have my browser, I have Acrobat, I have some copies of Office here, I have Salesforce, which is a web app. Anything that I use that's my favorite is located here. These little cloud icons mean that these applications launch in our data centers and not on my computer. And the other ones that have no icon will figure out what they're supposed to do based on my endpoint's security. Here you can see my current compliance status. I'm meeting all of the entire policy. These are the 11 checks that my policy was based on. Your firm can have its own policy. That's perfectly fine. This is completely customizable based on user or company or where they're coming from. So right now, if I go to my launch point and I click on Salesforce, it will single sign me right into Salesforce. This is using that identity management that I mentioned before. Notice there's no password, it just went right in. So it's very easy for the user. And since I'm compliant, it's running on my local machine, right? It is deemed my computer to be safe. So I just clicked on an icon and Salesforce launched and everything is normal and the way users are used to using it. Almost no learning curve right now, right? Also, if I go to my files on my computer, so I just click this little folder icon here, you'll notice I have my Workplace drive and my file folders are right here. I have different groups for different departments in my company. I have my own personal folder. I have a company folder. I can share with guest users and they can collaborate with me. I can download. If I go offline, I can use these files because they're synced to my machine. Again, everything is working the way it just normally should, right? There's nothing really special going on here. What's unique though is what happens when I go out of compliance. And this is that dynamic access control use case that I showed you before. So I'm going to go to my screensaver and I'm going to turn it off. I mean, I could also have the same demo by turning off my antivirus and doing stuff like that. This is just a little bit easier for a demo. I'm just going to turn off my screensaver. I'm going to hit apply. And I'm going to wait a few seconds and it will alert me that I've gone out of compliance and it will then alter my access. And that will happen in just a second. There we go. My access has now been limited. I review my checks and I see that my screensaver is disabled. There is a fix issue button. You can in fact, in this demo, if I click that button, it'll bring me to the screen and then I can fix it. In our next release in June, which is right around the corner, there's a button that says fix it for me and it fixes the issue right for you. So we made it even easier. We kind of got that out there fast because we know how important this is during this time right now. So I am not in compliant. I have this limited access. Let's take a look at what happens now. First, When I click on Salesforce now, it will launch inside our secure browser. You have the same secure single sign-on. This is a browser inside of Workplace. It's not the Chrome on my computer. That's this guy over here, right? This is isolated from my computer. I can't move a virus, if it was on my computer, for example, couldn't move into this browser session and start looking at my data, right? If I download a file, it gets downloaded to the Workplace file system and not directly to the computer, because while I'm not compliant, I'm not allowed to actually download anything. Also, if I click on my file icon, instead of opening up the files you saw before, you'll notice that our web-based file system opens in the secure browser. And if I go back to my files, Workplace is gone. We have encrypted all the files and sort of locked them away on the user's machine. A user can't get to them, a virus can't get to them, it's gone, right? And as soon as the user comes back into compliance, we'll then put it back. But in the meantime, they can just work in our web file system. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go into my folder here. And here are two Office documents that I had saved that I was working on. I can right click them and I can do edit in Word Online. And now I'll be able to edit and collaborate right through a browser and still get my work done, even though there's nothing in this file, but even though I'm not compliant. So I can't download it, but the system is still enabling productivity, even though I'm not as secure as I was a few moments ago. And that's what's really important, is that we're able to give the maximum amount of productivity given the circumstances of the endpoint, and that really enables just getting work done. Users aren't stuck on the phone with IT people trying to fix what's going on. They have an emergency, they have to get access to something. There is a way to always have safe access with this system, and that's super important. So that's what dynamic access control is. That's what the endpoint device inventory and compliance is. Just to give you a little preview of what the dashboard looks like for all your devices, these are all of the devices that are attached to this demo site, right? These are users and their devices. I can click on it. I can see what's going on. You see here that my screensaver is disabled. We know that because I just changed it. I can drill into all the activity of a device over time. Even after I log out, it's still going to continue to update this list. So anytime I go to this export button to get that list, let's say to give to an auditor, right? It's always up to date and always has exactly what's going on. Plus, you can see the entire history of each device. So if you had a suspected breach a month ago and you wanted to see what my device looked like during that time, that's going to be in the system. We are keeping an audit trail of everything happening in the system. I have all the devices, all the activity, everything that's ever happened with a file, every user, every change to their account. Everything that you need to manage risk and evaluate risk is included in the product. All right, so I'm going to go back now and just highlight a few more items. So first, just taking a look at this secure browser, not only is it isolated and much more safe than your local browser, it's faster. It's running on a platform that specializes in browsing, and it's also smarter than your average browser. So for example, if I copy data or print data, I'm just going to copy this data right here, and then I go back to that dashboard. So let's go to all account activities. You will see that the copy, Bob Jones, that's who I am. I just copied to the clipboard. You'll see everything that I've done in this demo is actually logged in here. It's really cool. And if I click on show content, you will see exactly what it is that I just copied. If I had printed a client record to my home printer, there would be a PDF here of that print job waiting for you so you can see, so you can know all the data that's left the system, right? Everything that's happening, every time you download, share, copy, all of that is being recorded. So you can look back and see what's going on and create your policies, so that they're relative to what's going on, and that you can make sure that you're safe and that you're following all your policies and procedures.
Hey, Justin, can I jump in for a second real quick here?
You sure can. Yep.
I want to underscore Justin's last point about data loss and data loss prevention here. The reason for that is we've got a number of clients, and one in particular that we have, who has had to lock down all of their server activities, because what they've found over time is that a number of their employees have taken their customer information and used that to create and start their own companies, and in turn steal their customers from them over time. So what Justin is actually highlighting here is a brilliant way to provide data loss prevention so that you don't have that type of a thing taking place. And now that we live in an environment where everybody's working virtually, and this is not going to change anytime soon, the best way to prevent your employees becoming your newest competitors is by having a system in place for data loss prevention. I'll let you take it back from there, Justin.
Sure, and this is just a few more minutes, and we'll definitely be able to pass the mic right back to you, Desmond. So, one of the things I was doing while you were talking was I did launch a virtual copy of Excel that is available from us if you want to run your applications virtually and have them in our data center and never even touching the user endpoint. You can do that. That's optional. We certainly can secure your use from your local computer as well, and it's, of course, there's a different price point for that. We did look at the secure browser, which is part of our Stronghold offering. And then, of course, the last thing that I really want to mention is you also have that file system that's available to you as well. So here is where I can, obviously, I showed you how you can use your files, but here I can look at the history if I want. I can see all the changes I've made. I can restore old versions. I can create a folder and then share that to my customer who's not a user of the system. And if they have Office 365, which they likely do, then they can collaborate with you, and they never even have to download a document to the client's home computer. So that's really powerful, right? If you want to, let's say you're a financial company and you're repapering an account to a new custodian, you can work on that paperwork safely without ever having that application sent in the mail, downloaded to the computer, an extra copy of it. You're really improving security for the entire chain, all the way from the custodian down through you, all the way down to the client. And that applies to any industry. It's a real solid way to really lower your risks with data loss and breaches. So you see here, I have two different versions of this file. I can restore and go back to the old version if I want. I can also see when items were downloaded or shared. All that's going to be in here. And I think that's probably a good place to stop, Desmond. Obviously, the last thing I'll mention is that if I go back into compliance, which I'm going to do right now, then the system will notice that and it'll return it to how it was working when we originally started the demo. So now I'm back to passing. Now my Salesforce launches locally, my S drive has returned, and I can continue working, and all is good for the user. So just thank you very much for your time, and we will certainly be able to answer as many questions as you'd like at the end.
Outstanding. Thank you so much, Justin. And it really underscores how complete a solution that OS33 is in order to enable and empower the remote workplace. I'm not going to take too much longer time with you as well, because I want to introduce our next panelist, and that is going to be Ben from Protoscore. And Ben from Protoscore actually has a new way of looking at engagement for employees who are working remotely. And I won't give anything away, but I'll let Ben take it from here. So Ben, it's all yours, buddy.
Great, great. Thanks so much for the introduction there, Desmond. Can you all hear me there?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Want to make sure that was all right. No, Desmond, thanks for the introduction. Excited to speak with everybody today. Let me go ahead and I'll start by sharing my screen here. So let's see here. All right. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
All right, perfect. Okay, so go ahead and start off here. I want to quick introduce myself and then Denise as well, who's on the line. As Desmond said, my name is Ben Molker. I am an account executive over here at Protoscore. And then Denise, our founder, actually is on the line as well. So between the two of us, we should be able to give a pretty good presentation, as well as answer any questions you all might have as we speak towards the end here. So to start off, I was actually really excited when Desmond approached us about speaking with you all during this Lunch and Learn. Because, we're talking about really efficiency and staying efficient and effective during this quote unquote new way of working, the way that things have turned out. Now, obviously, a big part of that new way of working has really been the sudden move to remote workforces, where many organizations that have never been remote before are all of a sudden finding themselves in that boat. They are 100% remote or very close to it. And just the potential struggles or changes, I should say, that come up with that. And how do we maintain efficiency with our new remote workforce? How do we remain efficient with our resources, such as our time, our finances? Probably the most important thing in that, how do we remain efficient with our team members, with our employees? All that is very, very important. And that's where at ProtoScore, our goal is to make sure that even though this way of working has been disrupted, and it's looking like it's going to be disrupted for the foreseeable future in one way or another, to make sure that we maintain efficiency and that we're effective and go on with business as usual, maybe even to a higher extent, and perform even higher with that. So when we're talking about remote work and maintaining efficiency with our remote workforce, how do we actually maintain that productivity and actually understand what's going on and be efficient with that? Now, traditionally, when we're looking at our workforce and we're gauging the success of our workers or how well they're doing, we look at things like, have they reached their goals? If they're in sales, have they reached their quota? Have they finished all their reports? Where are they at the end of the month, at the end of the quarter? And obviously, this is very, very important. But the issue that we run into, especially when we're talking about a remote workforce where you're not in front of your team members every day, is that things like end of month goals, those are really lagging indicators to success. And what we mean by that is, once you have reached the end of the month and these final numbers are in, it is too late to take action on that and change those outcomes, be that for better or for worse. And so, especially when you're remote, how are you going to ensure that these goals are reached by the end of the month? Well, there's a couple different factors that really play into whether or not we are actually going to hit those goals. And that really comes down to your activity and output on a day-to-day basis. Now, this activity and output is a direct indicator. It is a leading indicator to success, to productivity, and to those goals being hit at the end of the month. And so by monitoring activity and output, we can directly impact the results of the business, and we can ensure that our team members are being productive. In a remote work environment, although, managing this daily activity and output can really be a strenuous task. It was strenuous enough even when you were in the office, and it was something that we attempted to do, but even in the office, it was really difficult to get a perfect feel for it. Now that you're out of the office, it's a whole nother ballgame. So how do we do that? Well, a lot of the clients that we speak with, they look at activity and output, and they do things like, daily calls. Some of our clients in the past were doing 2-3 calls a day to check in with their team and see, hey, what have you done today? What's your activity? What's your output? Well, that's not a very efficient use of your time, for one thing. That's incredibly inefficient both for the manager's time and also for your team members' time when you're doing 3+ check-ins a day. And also, it can kind of create a sense of, or a lack of trust. Your team members are wondering, hey, why am I being checked on 3 times a day about that I get this task done? Am I being efficient? And so what we did at ProtoScore is we've worked to find a way so that as leaders, you all can clearly understand what activity and output is going on during the course of the day in a simple, easy to understand format that's not going to take up a lot of time, and at the same time is not going to leave your team members feeling like you're constantly checking in on them and constantly wondering what they're doing. So what we did is we took all the productive activity and output business data over the course of a day, week, month, and we combined it into one simple scoring metric. Now we're talking about the data that you're getting from phone calls, from business phone calls, email, meeting time, chat lines with team members. If we're talking sales teams, we might be thinking about things like LinkedIn activity as well, CRM activity as well in there. And we take all that data and thousands upon thousands of data points and combine it into one simple scoring metric between 0 and 100 so that leadership can clearly and concisely see how each team member is doing and compare it against their peers. Now, the closest thing to compare this idea of scoring activity and output to is something like a FICO score. We're all pretty familiar with a FICO score. You know, you're taking in tons of data and you're combining it all into one scoring metric that shows whether you're good for a loan or whether you're not good for a loan, you got bad credit. Proto score, we're doing the exact same thing. We're taking in tons of data points on activity and output metrics, and we're combining it into one simple scoring metric that will show you in leadership whether or not this team member is being productive or they're not being productive. And to kind of expand on that, so to visualize it, you know, there's a spectrum on that score, similar to a spectrum on a FICO score. Your low scoring individuals, those individuals who are below a 30, you know, those are your team members who are just, frankly, they are not engaged with the business whatsoever. They're not putting in the effort. These are the individuals that, especially when they're remote, these are the people you're seeing on Netflix every day, okay? They're not working like they should be, and the reality is they're not going to be hitting their goals at the end of the month because the effort is not there. And that's a score that you see on a day-to-day basis. So you can see, hey, they were a 30 or below this week. I know we need to talk with them if we want to change this and get that productivity up so that we can potentially save this team member and save the business there. On the other side, we're talking about our team members that are 70s and above. Those are our high scoring individuals. Those are our team members that are engaged with the business. They are putting in the correct amount of effort every day. And not just the correct amount, but these are really the individuals who are going above and beyond to make sure that they are successful. They got the will there, and they are the ones who are much more likely to be hitting those goals at the end of the month and are productive employees for your business. These are the individuals you want around there. Now, one more slide here before I actually dive into the live demo of Proto Score, because I know that's what you all want to see, is actually what this technology looks like, what we can glean from it, how it works. I'm not going to go over this slide in detail, but I just want to focus on there are 5 key areas that Proto Score works with your business in order to create a positive impact. And all of these are incredibly relevant right now, especially when we're talking about newly remote workforces and needing to make sure that we've got A players on our team and everybody's engaged, not knowing what the future may necessarily hold. By scoring team members based off their activity output and their productivity, you're able to drive and monitor employee engagement. You're able to fully have visibility into your remote workforce, and vice versa. Your team members know that you've got that visibility, so everybody's on the same page. You can help to understand what revenue results are going to be attainable based off that activity and output. You're able to drive cloud adoption of things like CRM technologies, UCaaS technologies. That's especially huge right now. Everybody's been going remote. Are they actually using that UCaaS phone system that you've given them if you've gone that route? And you can make sure that they're actually using it from home. And then lastly, create real meaningful one-on-one and coaching opportunities with your team members. You can quickly see, and we're going to dive into this, you can quickly see who is putting in the effort so that you know where there needs to be coaching. If someone's got a low score, you know, hey, we need to coach them on their activity and output. They need to be working a little bit hard. We need to talk to them about it. Whereas vice versa, if someone has been busting their tail, they've got that high score, they've got the activity and output, you know that if they're struggling, if they're not reaching their goals, you know there might be another issue there, and you can quickly get to that issue, and we'll get into that here as well. So let me go ahead and without any more slideshow there, let me go ahead and dive into the actual live dashboard of ProtoScore so that you all can actually see this technology. So in front of you, you are seeing the initial ProtoScore dashboard. All right, this is what leadership you all will see every morning when you log in. You're going to see that we're looking at the past 7 days worth of data, which we can customize as we see fit. Yesterday, this week, this month, you can customize it. We actually have a lot of clients who have been using the customized view in order to see how their team has been doing overall since going remote in particular. And then we've got the organizational proto score as a whole, which in our case was a 70. That's a pretty good score for an overall score for an organization. And then this is a real key metric here. We can see the performance change, either increase or decrease, right next to it. In this case, we got a 5% performance decrease. Now, when we're talking organization whole, and not just the individual, but the whole organization, 5% is actually a fairly substantial metric. And that's something that we would want to find out, you know, where's that 5% dip happening? From there, we can, and this is for the whole organization, okay, our entire team. Now from there, we're breaking them down to 3 boxes: red for below, gray for within, and blue for above average. Now, this is a demo account. This is not our whole team here. This is just 5 members out of our account executive team specifically. And so you're only seeing 5 of those team members' metrics here, not the whole team right here, which is what's being reflected up here. I hope that that makes sense. From there, we break it down into a line graph so that you can see the comparison in dark for this current 7 days compared to the previous 7 days in light blue. So you can quickly see, you know, what days were we doing worse than the previous, and we can clearly see that our drop in activity happened here on the previous Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, which makes sense. It was leading up to a 3-day weekend, which is blocked off right here. That's pretty telling. Now, I don't want to dwell too much on this page right here because this is a snapshot of the data, just organizing it into one simple piece. But I hope that as we go through this presentation, you can see everything about ProtoScore is designed to be user-friendly and efficient to use. We don't want to take up a lot of time on leadership or team members' behalf. We want it to be very simple and quick. Now, from there, you can see I'm going to go into the sidebar. We're looking at the dashboard view. I'm going to go down to employees. I'm going to click on the downward arrow. Once again, this account is simply a demo account. So we've only got 5 members out of our sales team that we picked for it. So I'm going to click on sales. And then I can see each of our team members compared right here in this bar graph. This is a great view that you all can use to clearly see, you know, how are my team members doing compared one against the other. We can see on here, you know, on the sales team at least, everybody's mostly in the same area. There's no big drops or big increases. Everyone's in the same area, so that's very good. From there, we can go ahead and dive in and stack rank the team members. Highest to lowest or lowest to highest right here simply by clicking on the ProtoScore emblem. And we can do the same thing with performance increase or decrease. We can rank them off of that as well. But I'm going to go ahead and dive into Jess here because I want to show you guys this actual data and how it can be used to really effectively manage your newly remote teams and be efficient in that manner. So I'm going to pick on, like I said, I'm going to pick on Jess. Jess is one of our top performers by far, and it shows in her score. And 84 is an amazing proto score to have. And I can then see her data from the past 7 days. Of course, part of those 7 days was a 3-day holiday. The dark is the current period. The light is the previous period. And I can actually click on, let's go ahead and we're doing Thursday here last week. And I can see what she was doing on Thursday. So for starters, we've got this score of a 92, which is an amazing score to have. That is very high. And this is everything that went into making up that score. Now, since Jess is a sales professional, she's an account executive, we are monitoring her business activity on the tools that are directly relevant to sales. So for example, we're a G Suite shop, so we're monitoring all of her activity on G Suite, her emails, her Google Drive activity, chat lines, that's huge for us for interoffice communications, calendar event time, Google Meets, all that is huge for monitoring our success. If you're a Microsoft shop, this will look the exact same, just with Microsoft, you know, emails, calendar, event time, documents, Teams would be here instead of Google Meets and chat lines would just be Teams instead. And then we're monitoring all of her phone calls. We're taking into account all of her phone call activity through Ring Central. So you can see that she was slammed on the phones that day. I mean, almost 7 hours of phone call time throughout the whole day. That's huge. We're monitoring her phone calls as well as her text messages. A personal example, I've been texting with Desmond today. Our text messages back and forth are going to directly relate to my productivity today, and so they're going to affect my personal score. As well as we use Ring Central Meetings, so we're monitoring that. And then, of course, Salesforce. It's a sales role, so obviously CRM activity is huge. We're keeping track of that. And so we can see all of her activities, new leads, opportunities she's generated. And then finally, we're also monitoring and scoring her LinkedIn activity. Now, once again, this is a sales rep. We also have clients who use ProtoScore for everything from accounting, operations, project management. We have over 50 different roles that we monitor. And this view is going to look different depending upon that role and what's important for productivity within that role. The important thing, and I'm going to get into this data a little bit more here because this is a really big part of ProtoScore, but the important thing to realize here is that if Jess was not using her Salesforce, if she was not using her Ring Central phone system, then it would not be scoring her based off of that and reflect poorly up here. So based off that 92, we know that Jess is using the tools that we've given her to be efficient and effective, and that she's being productive because of that. Now, especially now, I mean, remote work is kind of a buzzword now. And how are we going to understand how those workers are working throughout the day? Well, here we've got a clear view of everything that's going on, a snapshot of all of her activity, but we're going to delve into that a little bit more. We can actually see a heartbeat of Jess's day. We can see when she started her day around 7:40 in the morning, and then she worked almost non-stop. This is a busy Thursday before a 3-day weekend. She worked almost non-stop until about, 6 o'clock at night roughly. I mean, so we can see clearly what Jess is doing. And we can click on it. You can see I just clicked on the middle right there at 12:30. I can see what is she doing at 12:30. Well, I can see that she was on a phone call. That was a calendar event as well. So I can see what she's doing during that time frame. And we can click on a couple others here. You know, right here you can see she's on the phone. She's on LinkedIn. And then let's say that, now obviously this has been a busy day for Jess. But let's say that it wasn't, okay? Let's say that she got to noon here and she just decided, you know something, I got a 3-day weekend coming up. I'm just gonna knock off for the day. We would see first off a dip in activity here, but then these red marks right here, this is gap time. We would see the rest of her bar here in red, and it would actually outline that as well, showing that she's not working. That's where she's not working during the day. So when you're looking at ProtoScore, we're not only monitoring what's going on throughout the day, but really also we want to give you an idea of when there might not be anything going on. Now, this is nothing for anybody to read into when we're talking about gap time, especially when it's only 2 hours over the course of a day. But if you're seeing larger numbers there, 4 or 5 hours, it might be something to pay attention to at that point. From there, I can actually dive into the data even more. I can click on her emails, see what emails she was sending off, and those are transcribed. Same with her chat lines, her calendar event times, Salesforce. I can see what exactly she was doing in Salesforce. So as you all can see here, we've got an absolute massive amount of data here that went on during Jess's day. She was all over, she was all over LinkedIn. She was all over Salesforce. She was all over her phone, her email. And if you're having to deal individually on a day-to-day, looking at all this data individually, it's going to be incredibly inefficient. It's going to take you forever. And you're really not going to be able to glean a whole lot from it. So what we do is we take all this data and we make it that one simple score. So you can look at this 92 of Jess and know that she's been efficient with her day. But then if necessary, you can dive into this data to see what was going on over the course of her day. Now, there are various different reasons where you might want to dive into the data. Obviously, if there's a low score, you're going to want to see what's going on, how long was she working, and you can glean all of that. But what if, and let's go on over here, what if Jess had this high score of a 92, but in her role as a sales rep, she's not producing revenue? That would be something that we'd want to look into. Why is she not being successful while she's obviously got the will there? That's where we talk about will versus skill with a business professional. We can actually see, all right, what is she doing? And that's why we allow you to dive into the data. We can see that the effort is there. So let's dive into the data. Well, if she's not performing well, we can dive into her emails. We can see what emails is she sending. We can dive into her phone calls. We can see what time of day she's making phone calls, and we can coach based off of that, so that we can help to drive success. And that's really where, especially when we're talking about a remote team, you know, you're not going to be there on a day-to-day basis to make sure that your team members are not only being productive, which is what the score can maintain, but you're also not necessarily going to be there to really talk with them on a day-to-day basis. And this is going to give you the ability to quickly dive into the correct issue and fix it from there. From there, the only other thing that I really want to touch on here, I know we're running into the 5-minute mark here. I want to make sure there's enough time for questions at the end. The last thing that I want to touch on here is, as we've gone through, I hope you can see everything at ProtoScore is designed to be efficient and ease of use. You can quickly see how the organization is doing as a whole. You can quickly see how the team members are doing stack ranked up against each other. So you can see where there might be a productivity issue quickly. And then you can dive into each individual team member, actually see what they're doing on a day-to-day basis, even though they're not there right in front of you. Understand what they're doing, how that's driving towards their goals at the end of the month, and ensure every day and every week that your team is acting in a way that they will be successful regardless of where they are working from. With that, I will hand it back to Desmond here for, I believe it's Q&A, and I think you might have something else to go over there.
Thank you so much, Ben. I appreciate you. And as you see, for everybody who was on the call, what we really wanted to do is to enable you to see that in this new normal, there are two different ways that we can enable you to survive and thrive. And first, that is by securing your environment. And then the second way is by enabling you to have the visibility to see the productivity that all of your remote workers have and are capable of in this new normal. So some of the things we've seen from a trend perspective is, like Tyler alluded to earlier, with WeWork, about 2/3 of all their office spaces are being let go, is that we're seeing this from a massive scale, that a lot of workspaces, physical office spaces are going to be divested over the next year or 2 years. And we are going to see a massive shift to, if not a complete remote workforce, to the enablement of a temporary or a rolling temporary remote workforce. And what that's going to do is enable more people to have the freedom and flexibility to work from home or to work from anywhere. And what it'll also do is enable a stronger focus on the visibility into the data. So rather than installing, Net Nanny or any of those type of softwares that actually, records or does screenshots of everything that you're doing, what some of the purveyors and leaders in the industry, such as ProtoScore, are doing is giving business leaders the tools to understand the right statistics and data that they need to look at to get predictive analytics on their employees' engagement. So just like when it comes to the NFL Combine, some of the stats that people are looking at are the 40 times, your broad jump, your vertical jump, and the wingspan or the length of your hands. These new data methods and tools are actually going to be looking at the leading indicators instead of the lagging indicators of what constitutes a fully engaged employee, and it'll also help to protect or indemnify you against those employees that are disengaged and that it could potentially be security risk. And that's where Justin Kapahi over at OS33 comes into play. So wanted to make sure that you're empowered with all the information that you have. If there are any questions that you all have at this point, I want to open up the floor for any of our attendees. If you have any specific questions about use cases, installation, implementation, or just general questions that we haven't thought of, now's the time to ask, because we got our experts on the line and ready to answer. So one of the things you can do is you can actually use the Q&A link to the bottom of your screen here, or you can also use the chat function to ask any questions that you have. And as always, you can unmute yourself and ask a question live as well. So I want to give a few minutes to allow our panelists or our attendees to ask questions as well. So if in a lot of any questions while people are typing up, I got a couple of questions that I want to ask for both Ben and for Justin. What do these solutions look like in an implementation standpoint in terms of how long would it take to implement an OS33 solution? How long would it take to implement a ProtoScore solution for my company? Take me from start to finish. How long would that take for me to get started?
Justin, I'll let you go first there.
Sure, thanks. I was wondering. Yeah, so we looked at two different solutions, although one is just adds on more features to the other. For the Workplace Stronghold, which does not by default have the hosted applications, that can be up and running in like a few days to a week, right? We actually could have you running pretty fast. If you have hosted applications, then it's probably a few weeks implementation time, to maybe up to a month.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. What about you, Ben?
Yeah, no, Desmond, thanks for bringing that up, because that's obviously an important thing right now. I mean, especially when we're talking about better managing our remote workers, we don't exactly have a lot of time to work on that necessarily. We're running at 1,000,000 miles a minute. So ProtoScore, we are cloud-based. We're based on the Google platform, work both with Microsoft or G Suite, although, as long as it's cloud and hosted, or cloud-based. And so it takes a grand total of about 15 minutes to get ProtoScore up and running. What we do is we simply sync. Yeah, it's very, very quick. And it's because we are on the cloud and we leverage single sign-on. So we simply sync with your Microsoft or your Google admin to start the process. They would log into their admin account. We would walk them through the process of onboarding. The onboarding process actually starts with a free, no obligation, 90-day look back, 90-day look back team assessment, where we look at the past 90 days worth of data to create a benchmark score for each of your team members. It'll give you a great idea, first off, of where your team is at currently, and then it'll give them a score to increase or decrease off of from there. But like I said, it's about 15 minutes to get that process started, and very, very simple.
Great, outstanding. Do you all have any, and I'll ask this question to both of you too, do you all have any promos for getting clients started in the advent of COVID-19 as well? Just wanted to make sure I covered that as well.
Yeah, so Workplace right now, Workplace Stronghold has a 3-month no obligation free trial. So you can use it during this time, and if you decide you don't need it anymore, once things go back to the quote unquote normal or whatever they go back to, then you don't have to use it. But certainly we know people need it right now, and we're happy to help you if you'd like to use it during this time.
Sweet. What about you, Ben? Hey, Ben, I think you're still on mute.
Sorry about that. Thanks, Desmond. So first off, I was talking to myself in here. First off, we are, of course, we're providing everyone who's interested with that 90-day look back assessment to give you an idea of how ProtoScore would work for your team, as well as a 7-day trial after that. On top of that, although, we are currently doing a special with, it's a 14-month contract in which the first 2 months are free to help you get up and running, especially right now. There's a lot of folks who are having to, maybe organize their budget a little bit. So that's what we're doing in that sense.
I love it. That's great information. So for all of our attendees that are on the call still with us, if you want any more information about either ProtoScore or OS33, as always, you can reach out to us at carmichaelconsulting.net, or you can do info or support at carmichaelconsulting.net or sales at carmichaelconsulting.net, and we'll be more than happy to walk you through the process of getting set up and scheduling meetings with either Ben or Justin, and we will always be happy to facilitate even more discussions. So be on the lookout for the next in our Lunch and Learn series for the month of June. But without any further ado, I want to appreciate you all for taking the time to hop on this call. Hope your lunches were tasty, and we'll be looking forward to hearing more from you in the coming months. And I will let our fearless leader, Tyler Jones, close us out.
Again, thanks, everybody. It was a delight to be with you. Thank you so much to our panelists. This is great insight, great information. And I think this is exactly the kind of technology that every business needs to be embracing to ensure that they are making the most out of the opportunities they have to not only survive this, but to grow and get stronger throughout the process. So again, thank you to our panelists. Thank you to Desmond for coordinating all this. And we will look forward to talking to you all again in a few weeks.
Perfect. Have a great afternoon, people.
Thank you.